fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Paul Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers. We're here to talk about the game, give some sort of reaction to the Seahawks victory against the visiting Arizona Cardinals. Seahawks stand 3-3 now, tied for first place in the NFC West, Keith, and lots to talk about. Fun game, entertaining game, frustrating game, but in the end, Seahawks prevailed almost easily, really.
I actually didn't think it was that frustrating of a game. 19 points, you'd like to see them do a better job of getting ending drives in the end zone. But overall, the Seahawks looked like the better team throughout the game.
No doubt.
And
that's why I was kind of a little frustrated, because I thought maybe they could have moved the ball a little bit better. The offensive line could have protected slightly better. Gino could have gotten the ball out a little better, not taken some of those sacks. And but overall, I don't have very many things to complain about in this game. We came away with the victory, 19 points. Our defense only really allowed 3 points.
Only 3, because the other 6 came on what was essentially it was going to be a blocked punt. So he pulled the ball. Michael Dixon pulled the ball down and got tackled. And as he was getting tackled, he dropped the ball and was recovered for a touchdown. So the defense only gave up 3 points,
which is remarkable considering
they were the worst defense in the league coming in. So,
yeah, second only to the Detroit Lions. And I will say this: Arizona was in an interesting spot. So it came in at 2-3 as well. Could have gone in a different direction had they come in and been competent on offense at all. But it clearly shows that they're the worst offense in the division easily. And they're going to have a hard time winning games this year. But their defense is kind of middling as well. And I thought we could have executed a little bit better and put up some more points on them. And maybe in the second game down in the desert, they will have a chance to kind of do that, and we'll see. But overall, Keith,
then, because it's only 3 weeks from now.
They've got a couple players coming back.
But yeah, they're getting Nuke Hopkins back, which is going to be a huge lift because they desperately need another weapon on the outside.
I just don't think one guy is going to make that much difference.
Well, and they also should be getting some of their running backs
and
back.
So forth. Yeah,
and so exactly. Because they're playing guys off the street at running back, and it's just, you could tell it wasn't working. And in the passing game, they've got one wide receiver of note, and then Zach Ertz at tight end. There's just not enough there for them to create a realistic offense. And so, they do need guys back, or this team's going downhill in a hurry.
Yeah, I think, they Seahawks did allow 315 total yards. 133 of those yards came in the first 2 possessions by Arizona, including a 65-yard run by Kyler Murray. Other than that, that added to their 144 yards total in the run game. But if you take out the Kyler Murray run, it was really an anemic offense all around. I think they converted 1 out of 10 third down tries, and basically didn't pick up a first down in their last 10 possessions. So it was a real struggle for them. And hats off to our defense, really. Finally we saw the defense kind of come alive, Keith. They had having 6 sacks against Kyler Murray, which is not an easy thing to do.
No, because he's super elusive.
Yeah. And he's only had 6 sacks against him, I think, one other time in his career. So this is a pretty special game, really. And it was kind of a complete game. while I can say that the Seahawks struggled a little bit on offense, they also ran the ball, I thought, very effectively. Gino ran the ball when he needed to run the ball. I thought that he played better than maybe some people think he played. I think he did what he could do given the pressure that he was under from our offensive line issues. And Ken Walker, I mean, essentially his starting debut for the Seahawks, and just really played well, I thought, and had some great runs, including one where I thought he was going to be pinned down early and just eluded like 5 or 6 tackles to pick up over 30 yards on a run that was pretty stellar.
Yeah, I would have liked to see him get 3 more yards and get his first 100-yard game. Just because you get to 97, and you just kind of felt like he deserved to have that marker. Because that's one of those things that they keep track of. So I'd like to see him have getting that. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry, which is pretty good. Gino had 48 yards there as well, and you end up with 136 rushing yards for a team that needs to run the ball in order for the offense to do well.
Yeah, no, I thought they did great, and then D. Eskridge came in with 3 catches. I thought D. Eskridge looked good too, eluding a couple of tackles and gaining some extra yards after catch, which was nice to see from him because that's kind of what we want him to be able to do. I hope they have more opportunities for him in the future. He looks like he could be a player that could make a difference. Noah Fant played well, I thought. Didn't pick up a ton of yards, but caught everything that was thrown his way, basically.
6 receptions for 45 yards.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think of the offensive line in this game?
I thought the offensive line struggled at times. Interior, the offensive line really was there was a lot of push directly straight into Gino's face. I thought Charles Cross played all right. Lucas had a couple of plays where he actually got out muscled, got out leveraged.
That was interesting.
And that's like the first time it's happened all year, including the preseason. So that was interesting. And, it happens, and we'll see how what happens going forward. This is one of the things with rookie, especially when you have 2 rookie tackles, is they're going to be up and down. They're not going to be that
but it didn't cost us the game.
Pillar of consistency. Yeah. And so I thought the offensive line could have definitely played better.
Do you know coming into this game, or I think even after this game, the Seahawks ranked 5th in ESPN's pass block win rate in the NFL? Considering they've got 2 rookie NFL tackles and an undersized center.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, Gino's had plenty of time on most of his throws, which is one of the things that's led to him having a lot of success this year. Is
Lucas
the line's been in front of him.
Lucas is the 15th best offensive tackle and pass rush win rate in the NFL. All tackles, not just rookie.
The 15th best overall his rookie year.
Yeah. Nice.
I actually kind of expected it to be a little higher, but after this last week, that's probably about right.
Yeah. And Cross is 32nd. So that's right in the middle, essentially.
Yeah.
Jackson is 20th among offensive guards. Let's see. Lewis is 36th, and Blythe is actually 14th among centers, which is a little surprising. I mean, his strength is clearly not run blocking, but pass blocking, he's right in the middle there.
He's doing all right. Yeah. So, I mean, you put that all together, that's a nice performance by the offensive line for over 6 games so far.
Yeah. In this game, it was a struggle. I mean, they got to Gino. They affected Walker behind the line of scrimmage a few different times, especially early, I thought. They tried to run the ball early with Walker, and they held him down a little bit until he had some breakout runs a little bit later on. How about Tariq Woolen, Keith?
The 5 sacks against Gino, some of those were not on the offensive line.
True.
A couple of those were on Gino, but yeah. Now you're going to mention you mentioned Tariq Woolen, his 4th straight game with a pick.
Wowza.
Yeah. I mean,
he's getting into elite category as far as I'm concerned. He's already there. We talked about Metcalf when he was a rookie. And the kind of impact that he was going to have as a pro. You could just tell he was just going to be a great pro. Same thing with Tariq Woolen. It's like, I don't care what the competition is or whatever. He's special. Like, he's just different. You watch him on film, he's just different. He's a great anticipation guy, great ballsy corner as far as being able to have great ball skills, turn his head around, make plays on the ball, high point balls. The length and the speed are evident on almost all of his receptions, really, and just outstanding. I mean, I'm so thrilled. I can't even believe he's this player, 6 games into his NFL career. I just,
this quickly.
Crazy.
Yeah. It is weird to think how quickly he has ascended into being
a top 10 corner in the NFL.
Yeah.
And going forward from there.
He leads the NFL in interceptions right now with 4.
As well as quarterback rating when targeted.
And add into that his 2 fumble recoveries. Wait. Kobe Bryant is starting to really
right.
He struggled like crazy in the first few games. Yeah. He's really settled down.
They benched him essentially for the 3rd game, I think.
Yeah. He has settled down. He's playing better, and he's got that Peanut Tillman instinct for getting after the football. And he has been forcing fumbles like crazy. Gotta love that. So
4 forced fumbles, which leads all players in the NFL.
Yep.
So it's quite a duo back there that we've got.
Yep. One leads the NFL in forced fumbles, and the other one leads the NFL in interceptions.
Trey Brown's coming back soon.
So it's only going to get better.
And they've put they're so confident now in their cornerback room that they're putting Sidney Jones on the market. Read today that they're putting him out there as far as being available in a trade. Which is, I wasn't expecting this. I mean, when you and I talked about what we thought was going to happen in the preseason, we were not expecting this cornerback room to come together until the second half of the season, if then.
Oh yeah.
It was just going to be one of those weak points in the defense. We thought the pass rush and the linebackers were going to be pretty good, at least the starters. But the secondary was just going to be a hot mess. We just had no idea. We had 2 starters that were injured in preseason and weren't going to start the season. We're throwing this rookie out there, Tariq Woolen, who knows what we've got there. And it's turned out pretty well, I would say.
Agreed. Well, I mean, it's weird in that I still think that Sidney Jones is good enough to be, I mean, he was the best corner on the roster last year. Yeah. And they drafted 2 guys, and those 2 guys are getting a lot of playing time, and rightfully so at this point. But he was still the best cornerback on the roster last year. He can't even get on the field.
And I thought Mike Jackson, struggled the first couple of games along with Kobe Bryant. And I thought, wow, this is, we've got Tariq Woolen. He's great, but everyone else is kind of not great. Since then, things have kind of turned around a little bit. I don't know if it's the quarterbacks they're playing, the receivers they're going up against, scheme, whatever, but they're doing something right.
Yeah. I mean, it's working. And I mean, Arizona's lack of talent at receiver is going to make it work, make it look like it works. But overall, it has been working the last couple of games. And I think with the changes that were made up front, which we'll get to here in a minute, I think that there's an opportunity for this defense to come together and become significantly better than they have been.
It's interesting. This is going to be an interesting conversation, Keith, because the last 2 years, the Seattle defense has essentially done almost the same thing. And it was with Ken Norton 2 years in a row, where they started a scheme and then they tweaked it because it just wasn't working. Players were not communicating correctly. The kind of players that they had seemed not to fit exactly what they were trying to do. So they came back, they restructured the defense a little bit, allowed their players to be in the best position to make plays and to be successful as the kind of players that they are. Now we see it evident in this game. They made a little bit of a tweak and a change. They confirmed that. A couple of players came out, Poona Ford and Quentin Jefferson, said that they had made some changes up front that allowed them to essentially get turned loose and put pressure, fill gaps, and work up field as opposed to read and react, which is the basis of a 3-4 defense. You want to one gap and be responsible for or two gap and be responsible for two gaps, which essentially means you're just kind of treading water essentially for the first couple of seconds of every play, reading and then reacting. And that really kind of inhibits players like Quentin Jefferson, Poona Ford, who are used to kind of moving forward, disrupting pockets, timing, etc. And you didn't see any of that in the first 4 or 5 games.
Yeah, I
so
mean,
let's talk about that a little bit, Keith.
Yeah, so they were being asked to 2 gap, which the goal there is to stack the guards and keep their shoulders square, and then read the run and then shed the block into the hole where the run's going and make the play there. And they just weren't doing it well. And they're not. This is a group of guys that's not their strength. And we talked about on the show, we were like, these are guys that are 4-3 players trying to play a 3-4, and it's not working.
Right.
So they tweaked the scheme, and essentially what they did was they rotated one of the outside linebackers up and said, okay, we're going to act like you're a defensive end as far as gap responsibilities, and we're going to one gap like it's a 4-3. Even though they've got 3-4 personnel out there. And it worked. I mean, essentially what this is if you go back to the Harbaugh days in San Francisco with that defense, that 3-4 defense that they had, that was really good and annoyingly efficient at getting off the field and all of that. This is what they did. They were a strange one gap 3-4. And it worked. It was kind of unique. Which outside linebacker counts as a defensive end as far as gap assignments is entirely dependent on the offensive formation. And it's just a matter of, making those things work. And the Seahawks making that adjustment in this game made a huge difference. I mean, Poona Ford lived in the backfield.
He got 6 sacks.
Yeah,
against Kyler Murray. It's they don't have a great offensive line, but nonetheless, Kyler Murray can evade a ton of sacks
absolutely,
just by his athleticism. The other thing that Pete mentioned, he said he confirmed, in fact, what Poona Ford and Quentin Jefferson had said after the game to the media about that, and then he said that was one of 2 things that we did. He didn't allude or talk about the second thing, but I kind of have an idea of what the second thing was. And it has to do with the way that the linebackers were used and running dime and nickel packages out there like 70% of the time. And they had been running those much less. And so they took
Cody Barton off the field
like 60% of the time.
Yep. And they ran it with a couple of different, they either ran with Kobe Bryant as the extra player or Josh Jones got a chance.
And Ryan Neal was in there too. Yeah. So they ran 3 safeties.
Ryan Neal, I think, it started and got most of the snaps.
He got 100% of the snaps.
Yeah. And so, but as the extra player, it was Josh Jones getting a chance to get back on the field after essentially getting benched for Ryan Neal the last couple of weeks. He got a chance to come in and play as a third safety, or sometimes they went with Kobe Bryant as the third cornerback. And they did that, one of those 2, more often than they were in the base defense. Cody Barton didn't play a whole lot in this game. And I can't say that I'm overly sad about that.
Yeah, Cody Barton ended up playing 38% of the snaps. And I don't know how those were divided between run and pass. But I would imagine most of those were pass plays that he was involved with. So that combination allowed Seattle to be more athletic overall. faster. Play speed increased. We were able to make plays. We were able to be aggressive. We talked about this at the beginning of the year before the season started, that was the idea that this defense was going to be able to generate for us was more athleticism, more team speed. We were going to go out and generate turnovers and generate plays and so forth. And we hadn't seen it translate onto the field. And maybe you talked about this 10 minutes ago. Maybe this is something that can be duplicated.
Obviously Arizona didn't prep for this. They prepped for what Seattle's defense did the first 5 weeks. And so that it is going to feel better right now than it might look next week or the week after. It also is a situation where Arizona's offensive line and weapons are pretty poor. And so that's also going to make the defense look good. So I don't want to go in and be like, yeah, this is the defense has made this switch and they're going to be good now. But I do like the switch that they've made as far as scheme, because I think it fits the players better.
Yes.
And it might not be what the coaches want to run and what the team ultimately ends up in once the personnel has had a chance to get, filtered through, but it's the best fit for the personnel that are on the roster right now. And, good on the coaches for making the switch. And I think they're going to get a lot more out of out of this defense than they had the first 5 weeks.
It'll be interesting to see what they do against the Los Angeles Chargers. I think a lot of people saw that Denver Bronco Charger game last night on Monday Night Football. It was kind of an ugly game, but Denver's got a good defense. There's one thing about Denver. It's a horrible offense, one of the worst in the league, but their defense is one of the best. And if they weren't on the field all the time, I think they'd be ranked, even higher. So they frustrated that Charger offense a bit. And Seattle just isn't quite there yet. And so I would imagine the Chargers are pretty excited to play the Seahawks in order to quote unquote get right. They're sitting at 4-2. And Seattle's coming in at 3-3. It should be a great game, but it'll be an interesting game for me. And I don't want to get too far ahead. We'll have another show at the end of the week, previewing that game, but it's an interesting transition as we kind of talk about what you want to talk about in our midweek show, which is expectations. And so my expectations for this game coming out of this game against the Cardinals, is now we're 3-3. We're obviously not a really piss poor team this year as far as being for a 4-win team or a 5-win team. We just don't look like a 4 or 5-win team anymore. I think that we probably will talk about it, revising kind of our ideas about where we think this team might be able to finish. But on the upside, this team's got some potential to maybe even squeak into a wild card situation. They're currently 7th in the NFL right now in the NFC as far as getting into the playoffs.
And the NFC is super weak. No one
and super weak. That's another.
You got to end up probably with 9 wins, 9 and 8.
9 wins gets you in.
That might get you in because there's a lot of losses happening to the NFC.
So the Seahawks need to win 6 of the next 10, 11 games. That's doable. So let's talk. So the Chargers, though, want to come in and kind of get right against the Seahawks. And so I'm not so worried about the Seahawks offense against the Chargers defense. They have a pretty decent defense.
They do.
But our offense is generating opportunities. Ken Walker's going to continue to run. Geno seems to be able to have found his way in the NFL and is doing what he's doing. And I think he's doing a great job. The defense, though, this will be one of those things. Can the defense duplicate what they did against the Cardinals? They might not have the same level of success, 6 sacks, and holding down, essentially holding them to 3 points. But can they find their footing and go forward against a really decent offense and hold them to a reasonable amount? I think if they do, the way our offensive plan, we're going to be in a lot of games this year.
Agreed. Now, I think that when you look at, if we're talking about this, Herbert's playing through a lot of pain with the rib injury that he's got. And you could tell last night he just didn't look as comfortable. His running and throwing was not as smooth as it normally would be. He wasn't taking some of the chances as far as, running with the ball that he normally would. And so that's part of it. And the other part of it is they really miss their number one receiver. And so they're kind of struggling to find an identity within themselves at the moment while everyone gets healthy and tries to get right. So I think that when you look at that, I think that if they're looking at Seattle as a get right game, statistically, I can understand why they would think that, but you have to look at this Cardinal game and say, is this going to be their get right game? Because Seattle has the potential to get upfield and get after Herbert. I mean, Herbert's not a statue by any means, but he is not Kyler Murray either. And they were able to contain Kyler Murray and get him onto the ground. So I think that you're in a situation where the Chargers, where they've got to, this isn't an easy game for them. Like they better come in prepared.
I think Woolen's got an opportunity to get another pick in this game.
God, I hope so.
The way that
that would be a franchise record.
Slings the ball around, takes chances, throws over the top. I think Woolen's got an opportunity to bait Herbert into throwing some contested throws. It's just one of those things. Anyway, we're getting a little ahead. So talk to me a little bit about this whole punter situation that the Seahawks have this year. Like, what's happening on special teams that's causing so much chaos with that unit this year?
They're not blocking. Guys are releasing downfield too quickly. You got to block first and then release.
Do we have to talk about the long snapper?
I don't think that's the problem.
Because that rush came straight up the middle, didn't it?
Yes, but that's usually not the long snapper's job. The long snapper snaps the ball, gets it to the person, and then they should be one of the first people in the line running downfield. You have the two guys next to him and the two safety valves, up backs right behind the line, but in front of the punter that are there to pick up guys. Those are the guys that you need to look at and find out what's going on, because with the whole situation in this game, like Dixon didn't punt the ball because the guy was in his grill. It would have been blocked. He would have punted it into someone's stomach. It was not even into their hands. Like, that's how far up they were. So he tried to pull the ball back and just eat it, take the sack, take the safety, but screwed that up, brought it down a little late and ended up dropping the ball during the tackle. And that's unfortunate, but it didn't cost the team much in terms of, within the game or anything. So, but honestly, what else do you expect Dixon to do in that situation? Agreed.
It's not his problem necessarily. I mean, the one where he pulled it down and decided he was going to take off and run, that kind of came out this last week. That was a previous game that he kind of made that decision on his own, which I find remarkable. I think that he was probably taking one for the team there. As far as saying that it was his deal, that thing just does not happen. I mean,
no, you don't just suddenly do that.
No,
it's one of those things where he's being told, hey, if you see this where everybody releases and goes back to block and there's no one in front of you, do it. Just run it. And so he's being told, that, and that's what he thought he saw. And so it was his decision to pull it down and run, but he wasn't completely going rogue. He was told, hey, if you see this, go ahead and try it. Unfortunately, he didn't see that on the back side, there were guys that weren't, dropping off and getting ready to block and set up a return. And he just ran right into those guys, and that was awful. But
that was that. So, okay. So let's wind this thing up. I want you, and something we kind of do every week, is give me like 3 or 4 players you want to talk about out of this game that you were really impressed with that kind of made an impact on you?
Well, I think Ken Walker looked comfortable as the lead back. We've kind of seen him struggle a little bit this season, just looks antsy and that kind of stuff. And it's clear that him getting 4 carries in a game just wasn't enough for him to get into any kind of rhythm with the offensive line and that kind of stuff. And as soon as he gets more, he just looks super comfortable. And I'd love to see that because the guy has so much talent.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a lot of great things from him.
I heard somebody compared him to Gale Sayers as far as his running style and his potential.
I got to think about that.
I'd have to go watch some film because I can't. I've seen some film before.
So smooth as a runner.
He was a glider, wasn't he?
Yes, but he wasn't.
He had a little twitch to him.
He had a lot of twitch to him, but he never looked like he was twitchy. It looked like he was just running and no one else could do anything about it because he looked so smooth. Like that's what I remember about Gale Sayers. But honestly, I need to think about it. That could, the way that he runs with speed and that but not.
It does look effortless, but he also has this like jump thing going on where he just he starts in one lane and immediately he's in a completely other track, but also moving forward, and so he's a remarkable guy with just the amazing feet, and I'm super excited to see the evolution of how this thing plays out. Who else? How did you think Geno played in this game, Keith?
I think he played all right. This was clearly, I think this might have been his other than the San Francisco game. This was more of a struggle for him. Only 6.4 yards per attempt, which is not, that's not a good performance. 7.5 is generally considered the bottom of where you want to be. He didn't complete anything downfield. I think his longest was 22. And so that, he
also didn't have any turnovers either, which was good.
You're right. And that's part of what this team needed from him, because they had a lead and they were running the ball. Okay. They needed to eat some clock. They needed to, move the ball, convert some third downs. I think they didn't convert enough third downs. I think they were 4 of 14, which isn't good enough. And I'd like to see him get the ball out a little quicker on some of those because those sacks were bad. They really were. But overall, it wasn't a terrible game.
It wasn't his best game that felt completely in hand from the get-go. After the initial drives by the Cardinals, Seahawks ended up holding them to, a field goal. And then after that, it just seemed like we were in complete control.
Arizona never looked like they were going to score offensively.
No. They had to have that block, that fumble recovery in the end zone to even be close. Even then it really wasn't.
It never felt like Arizona was a threat to move the ball down the field and score. And the Seahawks coaches saw the same thing and they played it super conservative on offense. So
yeah, right.
You know what?
Yes.
Like I said, Geno didn't have his best game, but I didn't think he played poorly.
It's funny after seeing a team, throw up 30 points a few games in a row, and then they do something like they did. It's an interesting thing to see. What did you think of Noah Fant in this game?
I would say Noah Fant showed up in this game. Like he is physically the most talented, I think, of the 3 tight ends, but he just hasn't been as involved in the passing game as I expected. And then he showed up in this one and led the team in receptions. And I think
he moved the chains a few times.
Yeah, quite a bit. He looked good. This is more of what the Noah Fant that I was expecting to see the whole season. Not that he's been bad. He just hasn't been as involved as I would think. Another player we need to discuss is Ryan Neal. Because Ryan Neal drew the task of covering Zach Ertz in this game. Yeah. And they basically matched him up on Zach Ertz every play and said, good luck. And, for a guy who was the third string strong safety, he did pretty damn well.
Third
in
string
that.
strong safety is now playing 100% of the snaps on
Yeah.
defense.
Yep.
They're just a better
And
defense when he's in there.
they're
He's just got the playmaking ability. Once in a while
Well,
he's going
he's
to
a-
give up some things or miss a tackle, but
he's a corner. I mean, the team has converted him to a safety, then moved him back to
Right.
corner, and then converted him to a safety again. But he's his natural position in terms of what he's played throughout college and whatnot has been corner. He is a guy that can cover, and he's not as great at tackling as you would hope for a safety, but he's got a knack for what to do and how to cover guys like Zach Ertz. And we'll see it, when they, take on the other teams in the division that have tight ends, because all three of them do. And so it's a matter of you're going to see
George Kittle and all that.
Yeah. You're going to see him up against those guys, and he can cover with the best of them. Now, is he physical enough? Maybe, maybe not. But honestly, good things happen when he's in there because he takes away one of the main weapons that an offense wants to use.
So the other two players I thought I would tip my hat to on this game was Uchenna Nwasu and Darrell Taylor. I thought they both played well off the edge in this game.
So you change what you're doing and you allow Darrell Taylor to play like a defensive end where he's coming forward most of the time.
Yeah,
he's not,
and he shows up in the stat line.
And he shows up. This was a guy that essentially had been benched.
Yeah.
And, if Daryl Johnson hadn't gotten injured and tossed on IR, we may not be seeing much of Darrell Taylor at all. And then they switch up the scheme. He's one of the big beneficiaries of that. Suddenly everything that he instinctively wants to do is the right thing to do. And he can just go play. And it showed up big time. This is the Darrell Taylor we thought we were going to get all year. And if they stay in this alignment, in this variation of the scheme, it's possible Darrell Taylor could have a big year from here on out.
Yeah. And who else? And now that you've said that, I think we really do need to talk about Poona Ford a little bit, because Poona Ford really was the player that made all of that possible.
They did. And one of the things that they did was they shifted him out of the nose tackle and moved him and let him play some 3 and some 5 and let him attack. And they, put Al Woods more in his at the nose. You also noticed that Al Woods showed up a lot less in this game than he has in the previous ones. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he was one of those guys that did well as a 2-gap player. I mean, that's why he kept showing up game in and game out, is because he really, that system, that scheme really worked for him. And now he's being asked to do something else, which we've seen in past years. We know he can do too. It's just now he's got the guys around him that are going to be more explosive. They're going to get up the field more. They're going to be more involved. It
does seem like this thing might be scheme specific, like to who they're facing. And so we had talked about the defense being in multiple formations and multiple fronts this year. And really they've really tried to get this 3-4 thing going. And now we're seeing multiple. And I think that, going forward, Al Woods is still going to have his opportunities. I think they'll just come in different spots. All right. I think that's a wrap for this. Seahawks win 19-9. It's a great game. We're going to talk about expectations in our next show, in our midweek show, how they may have shifted from, where we evolved at the beginning of the year in our prediction show to where they might be sitting at this point. And then later in the week, as we get ready for the Charger game, we'll have our preview show up. So hope you join us for that. You can find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NWC Hawk. The show is at Hawks Playbook. and you know where to find all your favorite podcast platforms. So look for us on there and subscribe. And YouTube, we've got our own YouTube channel as well. Just look up Seahawks Playbook Podcast and make sure you hit the subscribe button on that as well. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.